before I
Yes.
forget. And then I'm going to begin our live stream
Yeah.
in in Facebook. I have I have all the panelists on here today. And give me a second. I'm going to introduce all of the panelists, and then I am going to spotlight Catherine to take it away. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask everyone to mute themselves,
Yeah.
so we do not have any special effects coming in, please.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Welcome. I'm going to introduce our panel, and then I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Catherine to take it away from there. The top left hand of the screen is Dr. Catherine Lefoto, our host in Johannesburg, South
That's correct.
Africa. And Dr. Catherine has us gather every Thursdays, and she's slowly helping to bring this message of hope to South Africa. And we are glad that you have taken the initiative to help us host this every Thursday. So thank you, Dr. Catherine. And top right hand is Dr. Esther Ngare. Dr. Esther Ngare is a family medicine physician. She is a daughter of Africa, East Africa. She's from Kenya, and she resides in Houston, Texas, and is my colleague, and friend in helping us spread the message of hope. So, Dr. Esther, welcome. And Keith Newsom. Keith Newsom resides in Pensacola, Florida. Kid is a patient who suffered from so many modern day diseases that all are the result of what we'll be talking about. He had diabetes for 25 years. You're going to hear his story about how reversing the root cause of this gave him his life back. And finally, I'm Dr. Dieter. I'm a board certified internist and pediatrician. And 3 years ago, I learned that our modern day diseases are reversible. And since then, that changed the way I practice medicine. And I am now going around spreading the same message of hope to have as many people know that their diabetes, their blood pressure, their weight, you name it, can all be reversed. I now see this as my calling to help as many people reclaim their health. So that's our panel. I am going to now just spotlight Dr. Catherine to take it from there and get us started.
Fantastic. Thank you, Doc, and welcome everyone. Thank you for making it this evening. According to our tradition, what we always ask is please use the chat box to type for us and let us know what city and country you are in. By way of housekeeping rules, I'm just going to ask that first and foremost, it is important to appreciate that what we are doing here in these sessions is not in any way anti what you may be taught in the country you are living in. Please respect the guidance of the country in terms of the public health policies that whichever country you're residing in is concerned with. We are not going to be doing any live diagnosis of anyone. So the doctors in the call this evening, including some of them who are in the chat, are not going to be diagnosing disease. That's not what we do. The aim of this mission, as Dr. Dieter has already mentioned, is to spread knowledge, to spread scientifically proven knowledge about how our bodies work so that we can understand how to protect ourselves and do better in terms of these new modern day diseases. So I'm just a proud member of the Reclaim Your Health mission. It is a mission, and our goal and our aim is to reach at least 100,000 people with this message in 2026. So what I'm going to ask that we allow our guest speaker this evening, who will be Dr. Dira, to do his presentation first. As questions come up whilst he's talking, please feel free to pop them up in the chat. I do have some other amazing doctors like Dr. Natasha Pierre, who is in the call as well. She will be taking some of those questions as they are popping up in the chat. So do not be surprised when you start seeing some responses to your questions as they are being popped up. But otherwise, I would like to just say welcome once again. We are honored to have you here tonight. We are here to learn, we're here to relearn, we're here to unlearn. So with that said, let us give it away to Dr. Dira, my amazing brother, who is an amazing, amazing educationist and very passionate about the mission that we are on. Thank you so much. Over to you, Doc.
Thank you. Before I move on, I want to spotlight one more panelist, that Dr. Natasha. Dr. Natasha, if you can come on so I can spotlight you before we go on. Wonderful. Thank you. There we go. So that's Dr. Natasha. Dr. Natasha will be part of our panel. She's a pediatrician, and Dr. Natasha is a colleague and dear friend of mine, and she will be part of the panel here. I wanted to highlight her too. Thank you very much, Dr. Natasha. Okay, we will get on with our presentation. Welcome to all of you joining from Southern Africa, Eastern Africa, Europe, West Africa, and Cameroon, and anywhere else in the world that I may not have mentioned. We are glad to have you. I'm going to share my screen, and then we will begin our presentation. Welcome, just as Dr. Catherine said. As I'm giving this presentation, if there are any questions you have, drop those questions in the chat, and Dr. Natasha as well as Dr. Estangare are going to help to address those questions as we spoke. So I'm a board certified internist and a pediatrician, and I'm on a mission to help as many people take back their health. And the simple question I have for us today: why are we so sick today? That's the question I ask. And the answer is simpler than we think. It's because we eat in ways that harm our body's natural biology. Food is supposed to be medicine, or food can be poison. And unfortunately, it is the latter for most of us. It is poison. We eating in ways that have affected two key systems in our body. And those two key systems are how the body makes energy, number one, and how the gut functions, number two. Those two things are the reasons why we are sick today. So I would like to make a connection of entity number one to why we're sick, entity number two to why we're sick. So let's begin with entity number one, how our body makes insulin, how our body makes energy. Our body makes energy solely or principally through this hormone called insulin. Insulin is a very important hormone in our body, and it sits central at how the body makes energy. How does insulin do that? The job of insulin is that when we eat, what happens is that the food that we eat is converted into glucose after absorption occurs. That glucose is released into our blood. And insulin's job is to mobilize that glucose out of our blood into the cell. Okay? In the cell, what happens is there is a spatial organelle in the cell here called the mitochondria, which you may remember from your junior biology classes as being called the powerhouse of the cell. Now, in the mitochondria, the glucose goes through a complex series of reactions called the electron transport chain and spits out an energy molecule called ATP. ATP is simply just energy. So that is the job of insulin. And by insulin doing that, insulin secures the body's energy needs. That's how insulin secures the body's energy needs. Now, I call insulin the most important hormone in the body because every cell in our body requires energy to function. The smallest entity of the body, the cell, groups up to form tissues, which group up to form organs, which group up to form systems, and the system forms the whole man. Every single cell in the body requires energy to function. So insulin is so critical, the most important hormone of the body. In fact, I call insulin the CEO of the body. It is hormone numero uno. When insulin is doing its job well, everything works smoothly as a CEO. When insulin is not doing its job well, there is trouble. So insulin, that's how insulin secures the body's energy needs. I want you to understand something. Because every cell in the body needs energy to function. When the cell doesn't have the energy it needs, it malfunctions. The simplest definition of a disease, ladies and gentlemen, is a group of cells, tissues, organs, or system that has stopped functioning well because it lacks the energy it needs to function well. Now, when there is a breakdown in the process of insulin securing the body's energy needs, we call that breakdown insulin resistance. When insulin cannot do this, we call that insulin resistance. And why does insulin resistance come about? Why do we have a breakdown in this process? Well, the answer is simple, and I'll flesh it out a little bit. It's because insulin is now having to work much more than it's supposed to. Unfortunately, in today's day and age, we are consuming about 35% more calories than you and I, our ancestors, did. So, because we are consuming 35% more calories, what happens is that insulin has to do this job 35% over time. We are we are eating 11 times a day. Here in the West, I don't know what it is like in Africa, but we're snacking throughout the day. They say the average person in the West eats about 11 times a day, because of snacking. We're eating like vultures in between meals. And what that happens, each time we eat, glucose is produced. Each time glucose is produced, insulin has to be called to come to work. So that's what's happening. We are consuming way more calories than we're supposed to. Our ancestors never ate 3 meals a day. Some people say our ancestors ate a meal a day or a meal and a half a day, but we are eating more than that. And when we do, insulin is getting bombarded with too much work. If I had a job and my employer told me, Dr. Dieter, you're going to need to come to work 35% you're going to have to work 35% overtime every day, I'm going to burn out. And when I burn out, I become an ineffective employee, and my efficiency or my productivity decreases. So when insulin works 35% over time, what happens? Insulin becomes burned out. Insulin is no longer an effective employee in securing the body's energy needs. Now, there is a process, there is a process by which this happens, and I want to flesh that out a little bit more. We develop this breakdown process of insulin resistance in two ways. The very first way is what I call too much fat. One of them, too much fat. And then that leads to the second problem, what I call too much insulin. And I'm going to explain to you how that happens. Too much insulin. Now, a cell is normally supposed to look like this. A normal cell. When we consume more calories than we're supposed to, the body takes those excess calories and converts those excess calories into fat. Unfortunately, the body doesn't know what to do with that fat. It takes that fat and lumps it into the cell. So I'll draw a replica of this cell. It lumps the fat into the cell. And this fat now is now, this cell now is now what I call a fat laden cell. It's pregnant with fat. And that's a problem. Why? Because the job of insulin is that when there is glucose in the blood, insulin is going to move that glucose into the cell. It could easily do so for this cell. But with this cell that is fat laden, when insulin comes and knocks on the door of the cell to have the cell bring in glucose, you know what the cell tells insulin when insulin knocks on the door and says, knock, knock, I got glucose that I want you to bring in. The cell tells insulin, I'm sorry, I'm filled with fat. I got no place to put insulin. I've got no place to put glucose. If I were to open my doors to glucose, glucose is not going to have a place to lay its head. All the beds in the inn, all the rooms in the inn are full. So the cell refuses to open its doors to glucose. And what is that is a crazy thing because the cell actually needs glucose to survive. It doesn't want glucose. Glucose is a need. Imagine you closing the door to something that you need. That is like a suicide mission, right? You depriving yourself of something you need, or saying, or maybe deprive is not the word. You saying no to something you need. This cell right here is saying no to glucose that it needs to survive, because it needs glucose to make energy. It's saying no because it's filled with fat. Now, what happens? So that's how too much fat causes you to have the insulin resistance problem. If glucose cannot enter the cell, you cannot run glucose through the electron transport chain in the mitochondria to make energy. You do not have energy. The cells don't have energy. They cannot function. So that's the first way. Now, what happens is because glucose cannot enter the cell, that glucose is now going to accumulate in the blood. And the accumulation of glucose in the blood is a problem. It's problematic. That amount of glucose that accumulates in the blood causes a text message to be sent to the pancreas to say, hey, there's so much glucose in the blood, you need to produce more insulin. Because the body has a one-to-one relationship between the concentration of glucose and the amount of insulin produced. When glucose is high, insulin is high. So the pancreas gets the message and the pancreas ramps up the production of insulin. Now, too much insulin is not a good thing. Remember, I described insulin like the CEO of the body that dictates smooth functioning of the body. Imagine having a CEO of a company that normally ran the company smoothly, comes to work one day, he's gone crazy. He's backing unreasonable demands to his employees, saying you're gonna do things my way or the highway, becomes a bully and a tyrant. What's going to happen is his employees are gonna lose their respect for him. And when you lose your respect for your boss, it makes it hard for you to do what they ask you to do. It's hard to do something for somebody that you do not respect. So you you translate that to the cell. When insulin is running high, insulin goes from being a humble CEO to a crazy CEO. The cell loses its respect for insulin. And the cell loses its respect for insulin when insulin now commands the cell, open your doors this wide so I can let glucose in. The cell says, no, 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 I don't respect you that much. The cell is reluctant, to open its doors this wide. So in its reluctance, the cell opens its doors only this wide. So a narrower door means that less glucose is going to enter the cell. Less glucose that enters the cell means less glucose can be run through the energy factory, the mitochondria, to produce energy. Also, the less glucose that enters the cell means that more glucose will stay in the blood. So it causes the accumulation of more glucose in the blood, which raises the blood glucose concentration even more. And that causes things to go from fry pan to fire because of the one-to-one relationship. It's going to cause the pancreas to produce even more insulin. And when the pancreas produces even more insulin, in this scenario, it's like a CEO that was crazy at this level and raises their craziness level to this level. The cell will lose even more respect. So that's how too much fat and too much insulin, these two things cause the problem of insulin resistance, insulin not being able to do its job. So these two things then represent two important checkpoints where if we can address this, we can resolve the problem of insulin resistance. So when you have insulin resistance, you have global energy shortage, which then leads to disease processes. This slide is not exhaustive of all the disease processes in modern day society that come as a result of insulin resistance. It's only a depiction. I do not want you to take away from this that insulin resistance, is only these diseases. Or some people may think insulin and think this doc is talking about diabetes. No, I'm talking about every cell in the body that needs energy to function. So insulin resistance is the reason for your migraines, your heart disease, your fatty liver, your erectile dysfunction, your perimenopausal symptoms, and what have you. So now, knowing that these two present two important checkpoints that we can address, the question is, how then do we fix the insulin resistance problem? And you fix the insulin resistance problem by going to these two checkpoints. And I want to introduce to you a nutraceutical product that helps to do just that, called the Feel Great System. What the Feel Great System is a product made 100% from plants. And it's called a nutraceutical, made 100% from plants. And it's standardized and has huge therapeutic benefits. The two things in this system called the Feel Great System, which has become a very favorite tool of mine helping people take back their health, is a product called Unimate and another product called Balance. These two help reverse insulin resistance by addressing those two checkpoints. Let's talk about this Unimate. It is made from a plant native to South America called the yerba mate plant. And the plant is rich in a very special phytonutrient called chlorogenic acid. Now, chlorogenic acid has some important properties. The very first property of the chlorogenic acid that this has is that it causes the body to produce this hormone called GLP-1. The second property is that it causes intrinsic fat burning. Okay, and I want to show you how that is important. So, it is important. Remember, in this slide, I mentioned that the reason we develop insulin resistance is we're consuming too much calories. So insulin has now worked 35% over time. So if I'm burned out from my job because I worked overtime, the way I recuperate from that burnout is if I rest. So we we advise that if you want to get your insulin to working well again, you need to rest your insulin. Just like resting from a job to recuperate from your burnout. And the way you rest your insulin is by fasting. Okay. We're not supposed to be eating 3 meals a day or 11 times a day. Our ancestors had it right when they ate a meal or a meal and a half a day. So we recommend that people fast for 16 hours. Begin a discipline of fasting where you're fasting for 16 hours. Now, and the recommendation is for you to no longer to eat breakfast and to have only lunch and dinner. Now, when you're fasting, what happens is You're not bringing in calories. If you are not bringing in calories, what's happening is that glucose is not going to be called to work. If glucose is not being called to work, glucose is not going to be released. If glucose is not being released, insulin is not going to be called to work. If insulin was burned out because it does work so much, insulin not being called to work means that insulin is resting. When insulin rests, it could recuperate from its burnout, and then its efficiency and productivity can improve. And it could go back to securing the body's energy needs. So, what I like about this GLP-1 producing property of that, it causes you to fast. There's some people who cannot fast without feeling like World War III is about to start. What I love about this product, by the way, comes in a powder sachet like this. You mix the powder in water. This is what I'm drinking, and you just sip on it. And every time you sip on it, it causes the body to produce that GLP-1. That GLP-1 goes to the hunger center of your brain and 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 suppresses your hunger so you fast seamlessly without feeling hungry. And you're fasting now, you're resting your insulin. So we want you to, going back here, we want you to fast for 16 hours. So let's say you wake up in the morning and let's say you've eaten dinner at 7 p.m. and you go to bed and wake up at 7 a.m. You have already been fasting for 12 hours. We want to help extend that to 16 hours. So we want you to fast for another 4 hours by skipping breakfast. And just by sipping on this causes the GLP-1 production, which does that. The other thing which helps you to fast and keeps your insulin, your glucose low, causing your insulin to be resting from its burnout. The other property is that this causes fat burning. Now, why is that important? This major phytonutrient, chlorogenic acid, causes intrinsic lipolysis, fat burning. So each time I'm sipping on this, there is fat burning occurring. Now, remember how you developed insulin resistance? The very first step is you had this cell that was fat laden. So if this causes you to burn fat, when you're sipping on it, it's going to cause this cell, which is pregnant with fat, to now move back to status quo to looking like this normal cell. When it does now, the glucose that could not enter, that could not enter this cell is now able to easily enter this cell because this cell is now free. And all the glucose that had accumulated in the blood could now enter this cell. When that glucose enters the cell, it could run through the energy factory and restore and make energy, restore your energy deficiency. When it does that, when this cell returns to this, what then happens is that the concentration of glucose in the blood is going to drop. When the concentration of glucose in the blood drops, a message is sent to the pancreas to tell the pancreas, hey, pancreas, we no longer need you to produce a high amount of insulin because there's a one-to-one relationship between glucose concentration and insulin production. So the pancreas now reduces its amount of insulin and goes to now producing a low amount of insulin. A low insulin is like the CEO that was crazy that returns to Ed and is humble, comes to work, calls an in-service, tells his employees one after the other, I wronged you, I'm sorry. Priska, I wronged you, I'm sorry. Yvonne, I wronged you, I'm sorry. Keith, I wronged you, I'm sorry. Dr. X, I wronged you, I'm sorry. I've been a bad boss for the last 3 months. Please forgive me. When a boss who was initially a tyrant calls you by name and tells you, hey, I wronged you, I'm sorry, what happens is you forgive your boss and you regain your respect back for the boss. When you regain your respect back for the boss, when the boss now asks you, hey, kid, jump, you're going to say, how high? You're ready to go to bat for the boss. Same thing. When insulin now starts running low, the cell regains its respect back for insulin. Insulin is no longer acting as a bully. When insulin now tells the cell, open your doors this wide, the cell says, Roger that, I'll be happy to. And more glucose can now enter. The cell opens its doors this wide. More glucose can now enter the cell. It could run it through the energy factory to make energy, restoring that. Now, that's how this product helps to reverse the insulin resistance problem. The other product in the protocol is just simply fiber. Fiber is very important to keep your insulin humble. Fiber is very important to rest your insulin. This product is made from fiber. This product is just fiber made from 7 different plants, and it also comes in the powder. Now, fiber helps to slow glucose absorption, and fiber also by doing that helps to reverse insulin resistance. One thing that fiber also does, fiber helps in fat burning. Why is that important? Because of the way you develop insulin resistance. So fiber is going to come and do the exact same thing. It's going to help to solve the problem of checkpoint 1. It's going to result in fat burning. And when it solves checkpoint 1's problem, checkpoint 2's problem is going to be solved. Too much insulin. In the same way as the Unimate. So fiber does that. But the other thing that fiber does, it humbles your insulin in this way. It's because it slows glucose absorption. If you and I consumed a bowl of pap, which is a high carbohydrate meal, and let's say that's you and that's me. If you consume that bowl of pap without fiber, your blood sugar will do this. And that blood sugar will be maybe a blood sugar of 160. If I consume that same bowl of pap, but I consume this fiber product and then consume that bowl of pap, what my blood sugar will do like that. And my blood sugar peak there may be a blood sugar of 80. Big difference. Why? Because what happens is that fiber slows down the transit of food through the colon. The slower food moves through the colon, the slower the release, the slower absorption, the slower the release of glucose. The implications of that is because you have produced 160 units of 160 of glucose, your pancreas is going to have to call to work more insulin. Hey, 20 units of insulin, you need to come to work today. There is work to be done. Because I have only gone up to 80 units, my pancreas is going to produce a commensurate lower amount of insulin to come to work. Hey, 5 units of insulin, you need to come to work today. There is work to be done. If my insulin is burnt out from working overtime, I want my insulin to be resting. I want less insulin to be called to work, more insulin to be resting. And that's what fiber does. Now, I also say fiber humbles your insulin because when your insulin is high, that high insulin is like the crazy CEO that the employees do not respect. And a low insulin is like the humble CEO that the employees respect. And so that's the importance of this, of what fiber does. And as a result, these two things, that and that, help to reverse the insulin resistance problem. Now, the other thing we talked about while we're sick is our gut. And our gut houses about 30 to 100 trillion bacteria, and they determine the health of our gut. This bacteria have a special name called the microbiome. Now, 50% of the bacteria that live in our gut are what we call bad bacteria. And the other 50% of the bacteria that live in our gut are what we call good bacteria. This 50-50% proportion is important to maintain gut health. Now, one of the important functions of our gut is our gut helps to regulate our immune system. Some of you guys may find this surprising, but 70% of the body's immune system resides in the gut. The other 30% resides in the bone marrow, lymph node, lymphatics. The gut is responsible for training the immune system. When the gut is healthy, it trains your immune system to do what it's supposed to do, to defend you against any foreign invader. When the gut is unhealthy, instead of training your immune system to defend you, it trains your immune system to become a homegrown terrorist. The immune system now turns its back on you and begins to attack you instead of protect you. And that's how you develop autoimmune diseases. Now, there is something we call gut imbalance, which is a situation where the bad bacteria increase in number to say 70% and the good bacteria decrease in number to say 30%. What causes gut imbalance? The shortage of food. Now, wait a minute, Doc. You're saying the shortage of food? What do you mean? Because you just told us some slides back that insulin resistance was caused by us consuming 35% more calories. So, what do you mean then by gut imbalance is caused by the shortage of food? Well, there's a particular type of food we call fiber. Fiber. We are not consuming enough fiber because our modern day foods are so processed. The foods we eat today, our great grandparents will not recognize some of them as food. And fiber, every living organism needs food to survive. A lion in the jungle of Africa is no different from a bacteria in the gut in its requirement for nourishment food. The bacteria in our gut need food to survive. And the special food for the bacteria in our gut is, guess what? Fiber. So, because our foods are so processed, we're not consuming enough fiber, there's shortage. That shortage causes a survival of the fittest fight. The bad and the good bacteria put on gloves to dwell it out. The bad bacteria win that fight, they're stronger. And when they win the fight, they say, we don't have, they win the fight and they hoard the little fiber they have to themselves. And they say, we don't have enough food to feed our mouths and the mouths of those good guys over there. So we are stronger. Why don't we increase our army so we can keep a monopoly on this food? They now increase their army at the expense of the good bacteria. And we call that gut imbalance. And when you have gut imbalance, it now compromises the functions of the gut. The gut starts attacking the body, ingrown terrorism, lupus, autoimmune disease, Hashimoto's autoimmune disease, MS, autoimmune disease, celiac autoimmune disease, where the gut has trained the immune system to attack instead of defend. I want to highlight colon cancer because colon cancer is now strongly linked to gut and fiber deficiency. Another thing I want to highlight is anxiety and depression. Did you know that anxiety and depression principally is the result of the gut? Now, you may find that surprising, but the biology makes sense. There is a hormone called serotonin. Serotonin is a happy hormone. It helps to maintain our mood and happiness, all right? Mood and happiness. Did you know that 90% of that hormone, serotonin, is produced in the gut? And the other 10% of that hormone is produced in the central nervous system. So if the gut is unhealthy, the factory is not healthy, it cannot put out its product. You're now reliant on only 10% to maintain mood and happiness. No doubt there'll be anxiety and depression. So, how do you fix the gut imbalance problem? You just give the gut what the gut needs, fiber. And the balance is a fiber-rich product. So just by consuming fiber, you give enough food for the good and the bad guys, so there's no need for infighting. And so, in as much as the reason for why we are sick are these two things, thankfully, there's now an abundance of evidence that says that if we could fix the root cause, the insulin resistance and the gut imbalance, these two things that cause a global energy shortage, then the diseases that came as a result of that, can be reversed. And I like giving this analogy of driving a car and the car stops driving a car and you run out of gas and the car stops. It makes sense for the car to stop when you run out of gas because you have run out of your energy source. If you were to go to a petrol station and you bought petrol and you put in that car is gonna start again. Why? Because you have restored its energy. So it is with the body. It is so simple but so profound. Many of our modern day diseases are the result of a global energy shortage coming from these two entities. If we could restore that global energy shortage, we could reverse the disease condition and you can reclaim your health again. And I love these tools. They have become my very, very favorite tools in helping as many patients reclaim their health. And that can help you reclaim your health too. I'm going to stop now and I will hand it over to Dr. Catherine and Dr. Esther to take it from here. However you guys want to do this.
Thank you so much, Doc. If we could just use our reaction buttons to give our vote of thanks to Dr. Dida for that amazing presentation. And also, while you're doing that, please give me a bit of a response or a reaction in the chat about what was it that stood out for you about what we shared this evening. To me, it's always quite surprising to learn some of these concepts. So at this stage, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Esther, who is going to take us through the next segment of tonight's presentation. Over to you, Doc. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Dita. Always informative. Thank you, Dr. Catherine. We keep collecting these stories from the field, as people try this protocol, you listen to these calls and you realize they're talking about me. And you start this protocol and we get all these stories. Now, this is a metabolic reset protocol. It is not a weight loss protocol. So all those, when you saw the wheels of misfortune of both insulin resistance and gut imbalance, when those things are fixed, then whatever ailment you had that was being caused or was being made worse by those conditions, then improves. And therefore, the results are varying across, various ailments. People report different things because it is what was bothering them. Because at the heart of everything is our metabolism. And until we reset that, then everything else is just a band-aid. So this is just a collage of many of them. This is me. 5 months into the protocol, I actually need to add now a new picture to update this. I wore the same dress just for the effect to show, the change in my size. At this point, I had lost about 24 pounds. As of to date, I've lost about 30 pounds. 30 pounds of really fat, not muscle. But I don't want you to think of just what happened physically. It's also what happened internally. I've always said, did not have, most people measure their health by checking their A1C or, do you have high blood pressure? Is your cholesterol high? The only things I had was my cholesterol was beginning to inch up, not even anything for my doctor to say, you need to do anything. Never had an abnormal A1C. It was always about 5.2 and below. And but the one thing that I checked, because of now understanding what was going on, was my fasting insulin. And the understanding that way before your A1C ever goes up, your fasting insulin has been high and precedes the development of diabetes probably by about 10 to 15 years. And lo and behold, my fasting insulin was 57.5. The optimal range is 5 and below. 3 months into taking this protocol, my fasting insulin was down to 2.5 and has remained in the below 5 range all through. The little bleeps here and there that were there in my cholesterol are completely gone. And my blood pressure, I used to say that every once in a while my blood pressure would be high when I was at the dentist. Now it's not even high at the dentist. So, it's completely normalized. And a lot of other symptoms, perimenopause symptoms, usually, those are fixed. And what we realize with menopause, as perimenopause sets in and the decline in estrogen, your cells just become a little bit more insulin resistant. Now, if you're already having insulin resistance to start with, now you're just compounding the effect. So changing this actually helps even with those perimenopause symptoms. This is Dr. Dieter, our very own Dr. Dieter. In the first picture where he's wearing black, and a lot of people usually say this, oh, you just need calorie deficiency and, a calorie deficit and work out, eat less, move more, what we've always been told. Well, he was eating less and moving more. He was doing intermittent fasting and moving more. He was running, which is more than many of us do. But 2.5 months into the protocol, nothing else changed, just adding the protocol. And he's a new man, as you can see even now. This is his twin sister. And I think I actually saw an updated picture, which I should also add to this. Same thing. When you find out something that is good, who do you want to share it with? Your loved ones. So she shared it with his twin sister, and she also got all these health improvements. Jim Gracer, A1C of 12.2, had gone down to 5.2, and I think now it is below 5. We actually need to update a lot of these pictures and the information that we have. Here I want to highlight Richard. Richard here in the center. Richard had severe gout, had CHF exacerbations 3 times. The last time he was already beginning to do end of life planning with his wife. He could barely walk when he started on this protocol, was on the highest dose of allopurinol, and he started this the last week of August. And by December, he was off all the allopurinol. Here, when we did this picture, he was taking less allopurinol, but now he's off all the allopurinol, had moved from a size 4XL to just an XL, and now he's even, he's lost even more weight. And he had been on the highest dose of Ozempic when all this was going on. So, gout completely resolved. When I first saw Richard on video, he could not make a fist because his fingers were so inflamed and so stiff. He could not make a fist. Now he is able to have all that dexterity in his fingers return. Keith is here. Keith's story is just amazing. This man has been has pretty much been gone for a few seconds on the table and had to be revived, and here he is. And what I usually say, a lot of these are huge wound burden in the world, and they're always looking for wound doctors, wound nurses, and realizing that something as simple as this can make the difference. This is Keith's wound in January. After doing a lot of treatments, the hyperbaric chamber and all that stuff, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, that's what it got him to, the second picture. And just 3 months of taking the protocol, and the wound healed. And on top of that, Keith came off 108 units of insulin in literally 2 days, because he was monitoring his glucose and would decide when to give himself insulin. He didn't need any, not even 1 unit of insulin in 2 days, from 108 units of insulin. And I mean, if I didn't know Keith and actually have met him, I would not believe this. But I've seen him walk on that foot you'd never think that this was him just over a year ago. Inflammation. We talk of inflammation and we don't realize how much inflammation shows on our faces. These pictures here show the difference. The moment when people start taking the protocol, and that inflammation, the chronic inflammation that we have because of that gut imbalance. And once that starts going away, other than the loss of weight, there's also just a change in how the face looks. There's a change in the skin. And that's actually, last week we discussed that this is the first thing that most people notice, and actually people notice about you. They always comment on your skin is different because something just changes. This guy here, I forget his name. He's an ex-NFL player.
Jonathan.
Jonathan, yes. Jonathan, other than the weight loss, he was also able to, no longer have psoriasis, which had been a big issue for him. Now, psoriasis is one of those autoimmune diseases that, Dr. Dita was talking about when it comes to gut imbalance. So just fixing that, the psoriasis went. We've seen the same thing happen with people with eczema or other skin conditions. This is Ro. Ro lost weight. A1C came from unreadable, what it pretty much says above 14. Even the machine is like, okay, I don't know what it is, but it's just high. So, but her A1C came down to 5.9, and now it is actually in the normal range at around 5. There's several other pictures. I think I have Cody. Okay, maybe let me go back there. I like to highlight Cody here. Lost 52 pounds. I like that he's shirtless here because what you see is that in spite of all that weight loss, he does not have any sagging skin. There is no, he did not need to get, any nip and tuck. This was all because he lost fat and not muscle. So you actually maintain your muscle, and if anything, you actually are able to, because of that increased energy utilization, your muscles actually function better. And so you actually find you have more muscle definition. So you don't need to worry about having to have an extra budget for, your plastic surgery. 155 pounds down. That's a whole human being. That one was carrying, and now that's gone. Reverse type 2 diabetes, cholesterol, blood pressure, triglycerides, and no more medication. Again, the medication burden is a big thing. Acne or backne, here when you have this kind of cystic acne on your back. Again, chronic inflammation makes it worse. So by just improving that, you find that even the acne burden, which is something that's a big deal for, even in terms of, peer relations, social interactions, particularly for our teenagers and young adults. This is something that, you ought to consider. This is another story here, 60 pounds down, fatty liver gone, high blood pressure gone, and sleep apnea. Yesterday, we had a call that was talking about sleep, and you can see people using CPAP machines, the issues that it causes in the home, in the bedroom with your spouse, not wanting the machine, and it also interrupts interferes with their sleep. So when you take care of sleep apnea, you're actually not just taking care of the patient, you're actually taking care of the household. And our very own Dr. Natasha. Dr. Natasha was dealing with a lot of gut issues before she started on this protocol. And, once she got on it, that's a difference. And an improvement in her gut, in her hormonal balance, sleep, everything. And who's that? Okay. Dr. Dita, do you know this guy's name? I forget his name.
That is John.
John, yes. John came from 320 pounds to 254 pounds, and this is in 5 months. Again, looking younger, no sagging skin anywhere. And, this protocol is good for kids. We find that particularly kids with all the junk food that they tend to eat, the stuff that they like to eat, many of them end up just by default, and even what's being served in schools, eating a lot of ultra processed foods. So what is that lacking? Fiber. And so by just giving your kids, even if you're not going to give them the Unimatter if you're worried about the caffeine aspect, but just giving them the fiber. I know my kids take the fiber, Dr. Dita's kids take the fiber, and a lot of people here who've seen the benefit, we all realize the importance of making sure our kids' gut microbiome gets to remain diverse and robust right from when they're kids, because that in itself will give them a chance at a healthier life as they grow up. Again, as I talked about the face, see the difference. I mean, you would think that that's a completely different person, but that is the same person. And I think this was 3 months difference. Again, another couple here. Same thing, looking like different people. This is Vicky, 35 pounds weight loss. She's a type 1 diabetic. Now, a lot of type 1 diabetics end up getting insulin resistance and developing, the 1.5 kind of diabetes, where they have both an aspect of the type 1 and the type 2 properties. And she was able to reduce how much insulin she was taking by 79%. Joint pains were gone, a lot of energy, and by her admission, she hadn't felt that good in over 10 years. 70 pounds down, again, reversal of diabetes, lowered cholesterol, better triglyceride numbers. There is Cody again. And this is Beatrice. Beatrice is another daughter of Africa, and you can see the difference there. She has lost weight, and I think has also improved quite a number of her metabolic markers. I'm sorry, I forget exactly what the numbers were, but I know she has mentioned that. So this protocol, as you can see, it's not just about weight loss. There's a lot else that goes on. Many people ask, okay, I don't have weight to lose. What's going to happen? Again, not a weight loss protocol. It is a metabolic reset protocol. We have seen people actually put on weight when they've used this protocol, usually muscle weight, particularly the elderly who maybe are emaciated from not, being able to eat very well, or even having gut malabsorption issues. When they start on this protocol, they actually, again, improve their gut microbiome, are able to extract more food, more nutrients from the food that they eat, and they actually put on some weight. I know my friend's mom in Kenya actually put on 10 pounds, while the doctor had been trying over time to just get her to add some weight over years. And literally within 2 months of this protocol, she put on the 10 pounds they had been trying to get her to put on for about 2 years. So there's a lot of what we think is just a specific disease that is all linked to these two things: gut imbalance and insulin resistance. And so fixing those things will fix a lot of other issues. Thank you.
Thank you. And I put a picture up there of, that's our own host, Dr. Catherine. I'm sure, Dr. Catherine, you could speak a little bit to this picture. There may be updated pictures of your progress, but you could also share with us before we get to Keith as to what this has done for you. And
yeah, thank you so much, Doc. And thank you, Dr. Esther, for those testimonies. So this was me 6 weeks into the protocol. What has happened since is completely different. I mean, I post my progress pictures on social media, mainly Facebook. And I think why I took this particular picture on that day was because I was about to go to church. It was a Sunday morning, and I asked my son to snap this photo. And the reason I asked for this photo on that day is because I had just realized that the pain in my knees that I had been suffering with for over maybe 3 years had kind of disappeared, and I didn't understand that. And the reason I say I didn't understand that is because, I would always remember my pain, my knee pain, when I would go to church, right? Because I go to the Catholic Church, and, those of you who know about the Catholic tradition of Mass, that we are always, kneeling and all of that. So that was really interesting. This is now 8 weeks onto the protocol, and it's just been quite amazing. I just also want to share, if I may, Dr. Dida, about a couple of other testimonies from here in South Africa. So one of them is of a very, very, very good friend. She is a nurse, and this is very significant. Her name is Sister Margaret. She works at one of the big private hospitals here in Johannesburg. And her story is quite amazing to me personally, because she's been living with high blood pressure for quite a while. And up until the time when I started talking to her about the protocol, she had been going to, repeat visits with her physician, and they were actually contemplating putting her on statins because her BP was getting, progressively worse, and, whatever the doctors can talk to us about what that means. But she then started onto the protocol. So when she started, beginning of February, her blood pressure, her resting blood pressure would sit at around 153/90. I have memorized these figures because they are so significant to me. 10 days later, she went back for her physician visit, and her blood pressure, 10 days into the protocol, had dropped from that 153/90 down to 122/66.
Wow.
A month later, which was end of February, she was now sitting at 119/65. So there is no more chats about statins and getting her on more and more medication. And on the issue of medication, I think it's important because Dr. Esther did mention this thing about medication. For those of us who are in the United States and in Europe, I think it's important that maybe I share with you about how the situation here on the continent is. Earlier this week, I received a copy of a prescription of a patient. And it's just really shocking. I'm not obviously going to share with you, about the detail of the prescription, but the point is that this person has a myriad of chronic illnesses, and literally her prescription is a page long. There is 24 items on that list, right? And some of those items include things like diabetics pack, which means that there is probably 2, 3, 4, 5 different medications just in that pack. Guys, people here are swallowing twice or 3 times a day, upwards of 18 or 24 pills. That is quite scary to me. But anyhow, that is what I would like to say at this point. I should like to, maybe Dr. V, allow me, I think let us give Keith the spotlight at this stage. Keith's story is very, very important to me, and I'll explain after he has talked about it. Keith is the man with the foot.
Yes.
Everybody says they want to see Keith and the foot.
Apparently, I'm the foot guy. Dr. Esther said it. I was type 2 diabetic for 25 years under managed care. I didn't know what to do. When I first got diagnosed, my blood sugar was 600. My A1C was like Rose, where it just read greater than 14. And I was never counseled on how to handle it. And so I went through my life doing the best I could, what I knew how and what I had learned. And eventually I was maxed out on almost all of my diabetic meds. And it kind of came to a head in 2018 when I started getting diagnosed with, I had an autoimmune disorder that destroyed my nervous system and left me unable to walk. And left me with wounds that wouldn't heal. Obviously, that foot wound you saw there was the third foot wound I had. That was by far the worst. And in January of last year, 6 weeks after finding that foot wound, I went to the hospital unresponsive. It had gone septic, and it took my life for just under a minute. And it was on my daughter's gender reveal party where she was excited to find out she was having a baby boy. And a half an hour after she found that out, she got the news that I wasn't going to make it. And she obviously ran to the hospital and had to take care of my needs, which any parent never wants to have happen. And when I came out of the hospital, my blood pressure was 200/100. I weighed 285 pounds. I was losing vision. I was in risk of losing my foot. I had unbearable neuropathy and joint pain. I had several lower back injections trying to solve things, and I've had multiple surgeries on my arms and trying to restore feeling. And I truly think if I wouldn't have found this protocol, I would not be here right now to share with you. And I watched the protocol like most everybody that's found it has, with a little bit of disbelief. I didn't think it was going to help. And I had no idea how well it was going to help. And I ordered it about 4 days after my grandson was born in June of last year. Started taking the protocol literally on my birthday, and within the first day, I mean, my energy was through the roof. I hadn't had clean energy like that in forever, that I could, in recent history. On day number two, Dr. Esther had mentioned I was off all insulin, 108 units a day. I told my doctor what I was going to be doing. So we had regular checkups throughout this first 90 days. And within 2 weeks, my depression was gone. And for those of you that know what depression can do, after I died and was looking at my own mortality, I was in a pretty dark place. I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't have energy to even do anything. And once that was gone, within the first 2 months, I was down 60 pounds, 8 inches on my waist. My joint pain was gone. I went and saw my foot doctor because I felt pain in my foot, and he informed me that that's a good thing. Feeling pain means the neuropathy is going away. So I was excited about that. And then after 2 months, my primary care physician took me off all my diabetic meds, all my statins. The only pill I had left, and I was on 15 a day, was my high blood pressure, because it was still not super high, but it was in the 140s over 90s versus 200 over 100. And by the time I made it to 90 days, my cardiologist was amazed. She took me off the last med. She told me that my AFib was gone, that I didn't have to worry about it coming back. She saw no reason for it. I saw my eye doctor. They hadn't seen my eyes look this good in over 4 years. My foot doctor finally had a pulse back in my feet. I mean, every doctor I've seen are literally amazed with my blood work. And I mean, I feel better. At 90 days, I was down 75 pounds, 10 inches on my waist, and now I've been on it for 8 months. I'm down just shy of 100 pounds, down 15 inches on my waist. I feel renewed. I I I haven't felt this good in easily 20 years. And it's quite nice being able to shop for normal sized people clothes, because when I was wearing 4X, it's pretty limited supply on what you can get. Um, Now I've gotten opened up to a whole new world of clothing, and I went to a cooking class last night with my brother, and I don't have to worry about what I'm eating. And my food palate has changed. I'm eating things I never would have touched 15, 20 years ago. And now I'm eating it, and it's refreshing to have that food freedom. And now my blood pressure runs about 115 over 65. My glucose is fasting is at a 75. My A1C went from a 7.5, which I took 25 years struggling to get to that point, to where now it's a 5 as of 2 weeks ago. And I mean, I don't well, I know where I would be had I not found this protocol and met Dr. Dieter and Dr. Natasha and Esther and Catherine and so many more, that I no longer worry about the future. I get to look forward to growing older with my grandson and being a big part of his life versus him never getting to meet me and me never seeing him. Um, so I mean, it truly saved my life in more ways than one. And I'm finding different things all the time. You know, like my hair's growing twice as fast. My uh, it's crazy. I mean, it truly is. You just don't realize how much is involved until you start putting the pieces together. And that's why I love watching Dr. Dieter teach. He breaks it down in a level that almost anybody could understand. It
Yeah.
really, really has impacted my life. And I want to thank Dr. Dieter for all the help and that he's given.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Keith. Yeah, Keith's testimony and presentation is always very emotional. For him, for me, I think for a lot of other people. For me personally, I think I always share in these webinars that Keith's foot is what my mother used to get.
And yes,
My mother
I can
used
get
to
up
get
and walk.
those. Yeah, he can walk around now. He can run around with his grandchild, and it's quite amazing. I did not have that opportunity. My mother died 5 months. When I was 5 months pregnant, she never got to meet any of my kids. And what happened with her was that, as normally happens here with diabetic foot ulcers, so they kept chopping off her toes. So anyway, I apologize. Keith, thank you. It's always a pleasure to have you. We really, really love hearing your story. And yes, we're so grateful to have met Dr. Dieter in this message. And all we are trying to do is to share that for other people to know that there is hope, there is another way. So, Dr. Dieter, I'm going to ask you this question. Last week we spoke about the skin issue, which is really amazing, but I want you to please address for us one of the observations that most people almost immediately, within days of being on the third grade system, come back with here in Southern Africa, and I believe the same applies anywhere else in the world where people are on this, is this energy. Where are we getting all this energy from, Doc? I mean, it is crazy. What's going on?
So,
Please tell us.
it's a simple answer. It's a very simple answer. You see, our what's happening is that this product, the chlorogenic acid, which is that main phytonutrient in it goes to the energy factory of the cell. Remember when I was explaining about insulin resistance, how insulin made energy? I said glucose has to be shunted into the mitochondria, and it's in the mitochondria where energy is made. So what chlorogenic acid is a polyphenol. And if you want to read up about the importance of polyphenols, what polyphenols do is that they go to the energy factory and prime it and make the energy factory more efficient in doing what it's supposed to do. So what's happening is the chlorogenic acid component is going to the mitochondria and causing the mitochondria to work at its best. Give me your A game. And the mitochondria is putting out its A game. So that's really what's happening at the cellular level. It's going and what's causing what we say in metabolic lingo, metabolic flexibility or metabolic efficiency. It's going to that energy factor and say, you know what? I know you could perform at the A game. Give me that A game. It's priming it to cause the energy factory to put out the output that it could put out. And that's why people are experiencing that.
That is fantastic. So I have a brand new customer on board. We will talk about him and he will present to us in the weeks to come. But one of the things that he said to me this morning is that he went for a jog and it ended up being hours of jogging. And he's like, I came back and I'm still very energetic. What is this thing that he gave me? So it's really, really amazing.
That's what it is.
Dr. Esther, I would like you to please talk to us about one of the concerns that some people raise is the issue of feeling a bit nauseous when they start using the protocol. Can you please talk to us a bit about the nausea that some people may experience?
Okay, so a couple of things. I know the one that many people complain about is particularly the balance. That's where they say they feel some nausea. Now, the balance, it's fiber. And just like, even with other fibers in the market, most of them, when you mix them with water, they do thicken. It's the same thing with this fiber. It does get thick once you mix it with water, and especially if you leave it to sit. Now, there are people with different preferences. There are people who are okay with that consistency. And then there are people who, like me, will not do anything that even begins to feel like it's getting thick. So what I tell people is the motion from when you first mix it with either with water that you can, at a temperature that you can drink, bottoms up. If you can't do very cold water bottoms up, then don't mix it with fridge cold water. If you can't do, if you need fridge cold water to do that, then that's what you do. So a temperature that's comfortable for you to be able to just chug it down like in one, in one motion. So you mix it with that temperature of water and basically just chug it down when it's still very liquid. And I find that helps because you're basically just drinking, it's like juice at that point. It doesn't have any, you don't feel like it has any particulate matter. It just feels like you're drinking water. Yes, it's flavored water, but it feels like water. Now, the other thing is that you could also start by just doing half a pack, mix it with, with water and take it so that you slowly acclimatize your belly to your gut to having this fiber. Remember, as Dr. Dieter said, many of us, like I know the typical American diet, they say gives us about 10 to 12 grams of fiber. And, we need about 25 grams of fiber for women, 35 to 40 grams per day for men. This balance, the way it is made, when you mix it with water, that matrix that it forms is actually equivalent. One pack is equivalent to about 28 grams of fiber. So that is quite a lot of fiber that you're giving your body coming from doing 10 grams of fiber. Even your gut doesn't know what to do with that amount of fiber. So, and that's why you find some people complain of bloating. Some people may have constipation, and some people may actually have the opposite, loose stools or heartburn or stuff like that. So these are all things that actually show that your gut is just not equipped to handle that amount of fiber. So what do? You slowly introduce the fiber. And now I've actually just gotten to a point where I tell people, just start with half a pack. When you get your product the first time, start with half a pack of the fiber for at least a week. And if you feel that you're feeling okay, then you can take it up to to a full pack a day. If you feel you need longer, then you continue going at half a pack until you feel you're comfortable doing the full pack, and even get to the point where you can actually do 2 full packs a day. But definitely take it easy with the fiber. With
Right.
with the Unimata, I rarely hear a lot of people talk about nausea, but
Nausea.
it's
Yeah.
some people
Yeah.
haven't the taste. This is what I say. A lot of us come, maybe from the tea drinking communities. We're used to changing the flavor of our tea. When I first started, for me, it was too sweet. I never used to take sugar in my coffee, which is what I used to take. So taking this with a little sweetener that it has felt like too much for me. So I would over dilute it. And then I would sometimes grate lemon rind into it just to make it a little bit, different, or squeeze some lime juice, fresh lime juice or fresh lemon, or grate some ginger into it. For those of us in Kenya, adding a dash of tea masala actually alters the tea. So there are various ways you can alter the taste, changing the temperature. I like mine hot. This is what I'm usually drinking. I like my tea hot as opposed to cold. I find that I tolerate it better when it is on the warmer side as opposed to when it is cold. Of course, when it's hot, I'll probably drink it cold. So you have different ways of playing with it. Just make sure that what you're adding to it is not something that is adding calories or breaking the fast. So those little things, drop a slice of lemon into it, a little bit of ginger, that kind of thing. Make it to your liking.
Great. Thank you, Doc.
I'm going to go back and add about the nausea, just to encourage people. I'm just adding to what Dr. Esther said. The symptoms of nausea are transient because your colon is now trying to acclimatize to a bigger load of fiber. So do not let that discourage you, because those symptoms are going to get better within 1 to 2 weeks. And on the other side of the symptoms getting better is an eternity of health benefits. Okay. So if I went to the gym and I've not worked out in the gym for so long, I want to pick up 100 pounds to do a curl, my biceps will say, okay. You're going from not consuming, echoing what Dr. Esther said, you're going from not consuming enough fiber because your foods are processed to beginning to consume this much fiber. That nausea, that bloating is just like your biceps saying, it's your body saying, okay, I'm not used to handling this. But the good thing is, if I continue to lift that 100 pound, over a week or so, my bicep accommodates to that pound and I can do it. Same thing with your gut. So you may experience those. Watch what Dr. Esther is saying about decreasing the dose to half can help you acclimatize, can help your gut get used to it. But do not let that discourage you to drop it, because it's only a transient, a short-term side effect of that after that is done, a plethora of health benefits on the other side of the hill.
Thank you so much, Doc. So my next question is to you now. And that is one that comes up for us all the time.
Yeah, I'm going to add Dr. Natasha on here.
Yes, please. Because I have a next question for her.
She's taking questions remotely.
Yes, absolutely.
Let me ask her to start her video, and then I'll add her on here, and then you could also, go ahead with my.
Yes, so for you, so a lot of people that come onto our webinars, unfortunately, are already chronic illness patients. So that means that most of them are taking medication daily. So every time we talk about this issue of fasting, firstly, they are like, oh my God, how am I going to be able to take my medication? Because I need to take my medication in the morning. So I need you to please talk about what happens to those people.
Great. So this is a common question that comes up, and I like to answer it this way. Fortunately, there is a misconception, a huge misconception. It's not just in Africa, it's even here in the West. Patients feel that to take their medicines, they need to eat. It's that huge misconception. I have to have food in my stomach. And that's not true. You don't have to have food in your stomach to take medicines. Now, there are some medicines that need food in your stomach to increase the absorption. There are very few of those medicines. And if they are, your doctor is going to specifically tell you, make sure you don't take this on an empty stomach, okay? Now, most of our medicines do not need you to take with food. So this just should take away your fear of, oh, I need to take my medicines, I need food. You do not. But if you have one of those medications that your doctor needs for you to take it with food, don't take it in at breakfast. Just take it at lunch or take it at dinner. As long as you take medicine at the same time each time, it's going to have the same long-lasting effect in your body to create whatever physiological balance your doctor wants to achieve. So you could move it from the morning to taking it in the afternoon every day or to taking it in the evening every day, if you want to take it with food. So a big misconception that we have to have medicine, have food in our stomach with medicines. Many of the medicines, maybe about 99% of the medicines out there don't need food for absorption. And if they do, you just push it to lunch or dinner.
Great. Thank you, Doc. I hope you all heard him. So no more questions around that. Dr. Natasha. So I want to pose this particular question to you because firstly, as much as Dr. Esther's transformation is amazing, and I think mine is also impressive, but yours is just like on the other eye, it's just crazy. It's crazy. I mean, when I first saw your pictures before I met you, I didn't think you were a real person, I have to admit, honestly. So, so I post your pictures quite a lot, and a lot of younger women are always drawn to your story. And I would like you to please talk to us about. I never knew we had GLP-1s in our bodies. I mean, women are running around getting injections and stuff. So can you tell us a little bit about that? And more importantly, I would like you to talk to us about for younger women who are really frustrated now with sudden, weight gain. Some of them are not even having, babies just yet. What are some of the things that you would advise them to be concerned about in terms of thinking about all the other solutions that are out there for rapid weight loss? Thank you, Doc.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Catherine, for your question and all of your compliments. I really appreciate that. Well, I can say now that part of my routine is definitely strength training. So as you can see in the picture, I truly believe that muscle is a sign of longevity. So this is how I'm going to go into the GLPs. So GLPs are a hormone under the umbrella of something called incretins. And there are two of those, GLP-1 and GIP. And it's something that our bodies naturally make in our gut. And our bodies actually have multiple hormones that tell your body when you're full, which is really interesting. There's only few hormones that tell your body that you're hungry. The hormone that tells your body that you're hungry is called ghrelin, but we actually have multiple hormones that tell your body that you're full. That goes to show you that we tend to lean more on overeating, and there's quite a few fail stops that God created for us so that we don't overeat. The problem is that ultra processed foods, UPFs, have hijacked all of these fail stops. So some of the hormones that tell your body that you're full, as I mentioned, is GLP-1, which the synthetic version of that is Ozempic. There's a combination of GLP and GIP, which is found in the tirzepatide, which is Mounjaro. We also have peptide YY, we have cholecystokinin, we have leptin. So we have quite a few hormones, and not to mention when your gut is expanding, there's baroreceptors in your gut that tell your body you're full. All of that happens, guess what? With a type of food, and that is food that is filled with fiber and water. Okay, so that is the fail stop that God placed in all of our food. Fiber and water doesn't have so much dense nutrients, but it's filled with fiber and water, and it immediately tells your body stop eating. No matter how much you try, you will never eat 20 apples, but you can drink the juice from 20 apples. And so the solution that has come up with a pharmaceutical company is we'll just artificially make these naturally occurring hormones so that we can inject them. What it does is it doesn't lower your insulin directly. What it does is it decreases how fast your body removes the food from the stomach, which makes you feel fuller longer, and it increases GLP by about 70 to 200%. And that seems wonderful because now the person literally, the food noise is gone, they're not craving food, they're eating way less. However, the problem is that they're eating way less because they're not hungry. but it doesn't change their behavior that caused them to be hungry to choose these kind of foods in the first place. So the problem is once the medication stops, then of course the hunger comes back maybe 200% more. Not only that, of course, there's nothing without a risk when it comes to pharmaceutical drugs. The effect, we don't know why, but there is a side effect that when you lose so much weight, you're not really losing it in a way that is natural to your body. So your body does borrow from proteins and muscle mass and lean body mass. And so 40% of that weight loss that you lose is muscle. And we just talked about how important muscle is for longevity. Muscle is one of the main drivers of taking up sugar. 80% of your sugar is taken up through your muscle. So it is important for women especially, to understand how important it is to prioritize resistance training for longevity, for confidence, for lean body weight, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So rapid weight loss comes at a price. There has been, since millennia, there's been multiple different types of diets, but we're still getting bigger as a nation, as a country, as a world, because none of those address the root cause. And the root cause being, as Dr. Dieter taught us so eloquently, is that when insulin is high, it is a fat storage hormone. Other diets that don't change the thermostat, which is when insulin goes low, is basically trying to shortcut your way to weight loss. And you're never going to be able to keep up with that weight loss. Your body is always going to try to adjust. So you eat less, but your metabolism goes down. You exercise too much with a lot of cardio, then you're going to get really hungry and you're going to overeat. So try to do it in a way that is sustainable, not calorie restriction per se, but that fasting period allows your insulin to go down. Calorie restriction is not the same thing as intermittent fasting. Calorie restriction is you can still eat throughout the day, just small, tiny calories, and your insulin still spikes throughout the day, never giving it a rest. Maybe not as high because you're not eating as much, but it's still not giving it a rest. It's whether it's 20 insulin or 5 insulin. If it's every 2 to 3 hours, you're still spiking insulin. The idea is to give insulin a break so that it can actually go into the fat burning stage. And so for women, especially who are going through times of their lives when they're experiencing a lot of, confidence issues, and they're seeing everyone else using these medications to lose weight fast. Trust me, just wait 5 to 10 years and you'll see the effects of that. If you want lasting weight loss, it's always been down to the science, but people think it's so difficult because the health industry kind of muddles the language to make it seem difficult on purpose. But if you look at it from just very simple terms, low insulin, I'm going to burn fat. High insulin, I'm going to hold on to fat. The way to do that is not to eat 1,000 calories a day. You're going to starve. You're going to be cold all the time. It's to make your meals, put them into 8 ounces and fast the rest of the time. And the way to do that is the protocols that we just discussed. There is a way, but again, you just have to know the why of why you're doing something.
Thank you so, so much. And I think that is exactly the point of these webinars, right? Is for people to understand the science, because the science is the why. And once everybody understands that, and every single person is capable of understanding the science, right? I mean, Dr. Dieter makes it so, so simple. Even my lawyer friends, I always tease them about it. Even my lawyer friends understand basic metabolism science when it's taught by Dr. Dieter. Colleagues, I am really, really sorry. We are up to time. As you can hear, these are so exciting, such exciting conversations. Thursday evenings have become my most favorite part of the week, honestly, simply because I look forward to having this panel. I do apologize, but I do have to bring it to a close. And what I'm going to do as I bring it to the close is to just share a couple of important points around what's going to happen next. The first thing is, if you need a copy of the recording, you will get it. Just ask the person who invited you to this meeting tonight to send you that copy. It will be available by tomorrow morning when we wake up here in this part of the world. 2, those of you who are interested to find out how to get a hold of the Feel Great system in South Africa and Kenya, the product is available. So again, get in touch with the person who invited you into the call. Those countries that are surrounding South Africa, like Lesotho, I know there's a lot of people in here from Lesotho. We have also figured out how to get the protocol to you guys over there. So Southern Africa is taken care of. Just take care, just get in touch with the person that invited you into this call. Lastly, but moving to the last point of what I'm going to say is that these are things we do every week, same time, same place, same link. So please put it into your calendar. Please make sure you are on time. We start on time so we can finish on time. And for me, once again, I always close by saying the take-home message from these meetings is to say, please give your insulin a rest. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Esther, who will give it across to Dr. Natasha, then to Keith. You know how it goes, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so, so much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Catherine. As we close, my call to action is, of course, if this makes sense to you, wherever you had this information about the call or whoever invited you, reach out to them. They'll likely show you how to get it. You want to make sure you're getting it from the right sources. You want to get it with a discount. You can probably go online and find it somewhere, but we cannot guarantee the integrity that is the right product. You want to buy it with a link given to you by somebody where you know you're getting it directly from the company, so the integrity is maintained. The other thing, of course, is you've had this, it's made sense to you. You have people you know, your friends, your family, anybody, if you're in healthcare here, you're probably thinking of lots of patients where you're like, maybe this would be the answer. I've been just adding one medication after the other, and I'm frustrated, the patient's frustrated, nobody's getting better. Maybe this could be the chance. I mean, we saw Keith. I don't know whether Keith even showed the tote bag he used to carry his medications in. And, that's not the way life is supposed to be, where you have a handbag and then another tote bag for your medications. That medication burden is a problem when you don't even know what's interacting with what in the body. You don't even know whether symptoms are of a new problem, or is it a side effect of the medication. That's just not the way life is supposed to be. And we're supposed to be thriving, not just that I have low blood pressure, but I feel like crap. My A1C is okay-ish, but I don't feel good because of this medication burden and the fact that I still don't have energy, because all we're doing is symptom control. Or a wound that, you saw with Keith, interferes with his life. Can you imagine if Keith had this wound now with a grandson? Would he even ever be able to play with him? No, because he's afraid of hurting himself some more, of dropping his grandchild if he doesn't have feeling, he doesn't know, So it interferes so much with even just the everyday things that we do. And sometimes we don't think that the state of our health gets in the way of just enjoying life and thriving in our relationships with people. So please, we do this every Thursday. Get people to come and listen. It's the first step. What they do with the information, that's up to them. But at least do not hold this information just to yourself. This is one of those things, it's free to share. Share it with people. Let people come and learn. And, the next step is all up to them, but you do your part. Thank you.
Dr. Natasha?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Esther, and thank you, Dr. Catherine, and thank you, Keith, for your amazing testimony, and thank you, Dr. Dieter. I feel like I'm living in a dream because I never thought that I would be practicing medicine this way, and I love clinical medicine. However, I really feel like I'm making a difference with this, and I studied to dedicate my life to children, but unfortunately, if the parents are not healthy, then the children aren't healthy. It's a whole family affair. And so I'm just so grateful that my beautiful and amazing nurse shared this with me and literally started to create a movement. And so just my biggest takeaway is always hope. You have the seeds now, and now you know that there is another way. And as you can see, there are a lot of doctors who corroborate this, but at the end of the day, though this whole epidemic of health is not our fault, it is by design. The food industry, the pharmaceutical industry has hijacked our food and told us, hey, this is a medicine to heal or to manage the symptoms. But it is our responsibility to do something about it. It's not our fault, but it's our responsibility to do something about it. And it's in your hands. And I'm so grateful to you for taking the time on Thursday evening to take this call. But I really, really want you to really consider taking action, because action is where the testimonies are, and more testimonies, more people are saved. Thank you.
Thank you.
You,
Keith,
you,
over to you.
you don't have to live this way. If you're tired of being sick and tired, then what if this is the answer? If I can do it and everybody here can do it, it can be done. I spent 25 years on that hamster wheel. And if I'm able to get off of it and reclaim my health, who's next? Everybody has it in them. You just got to take that first step.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Dr. Natasha. Thank you, Dr. Esther. Thank you, Dr. Catherine. Our mission here is simple. We want to spread hope, and we want to touch the lives of as many people as possible. If you're diabetic, if you have high blood pressure, if you have high cholesterol, if you have sleep apnea, if you are struggling with, any medical condition, imagine if you were diabetic and never having to take metformin again or never having to take insulin again. Imagine what your life will be like. Imagine chronic pain going away, all those things. And simply by just addressing the root cause. Simply by addressing the root cause. And I want to encourage you to envision how your life will look if you struggle with chronic pain, if you no longer have that. Envision how your life will look if you struggle with high blood pressure, if you no longer have that. Envision how your life will be if you struggle with weight and you no longer have to carry the 20 kilograms excess of weight, whatever it is. And so this is a message of hope that we are giving to you, that if you can restore the root cause of why you're sick, you could reclaim your health again. And it is our joint mission, many of us on here, it is our joint mission that come this year, 2026, we have a small goal to impact the lives and health of at least 100,000 people this year. If we are able to meet that goal, we will be glad. Maybe we will break the ceiling and meet a higher goal. But our threshold is we want to impact the lives of at least 100,000 people this year with this message of hope. So if you have heard this message today and it resonates with you as a true message of hope, take action. And lastly, we're always looking for people to join us on this mission to spread the message of hope. So if that's you today, it has resonated, this message has fallen on fertile soil, and you want to become part of this mission, please speak to whoever invited you today and said, that hopeful message, I want to join the bandwagon. We can use you because every single addition to our mission helps us get closer and closer to that 100,000 mark of impact, 100,000 mark of impacting the lives of people. Thank you again. I hope to see you guys on our next meeting next Thursday. Dr. Catherine, over to you. Anything else?
Nope, that's it. Thank you very much, everyone, and good night from Johannesburg.
All right. Good night. Thank you all.
Good night.